Good morning. It is January the 6th, about 9:40 a.m. I didn't record yesterday. I wanted to, but I couldn't find a way to record my experience without including another individual who didn't want to be broadcast like that. And so I just had to kind of sit in myself and just kind of do the journaling and talking to some very close people and just kind of isolating and insulating myself yesterday, just as a way of kind of closing down the emotional volatility that I was experiencing. And so I did run it through the recovery literature, the steps 1 through 12. And, that was hugely beneficial. It helped me kind of own my part and, resolve to make a different decision and to have an expectation to be forgiven and to understand in the sorrow that the amends process was two-part, right? Apologizing, but also making sure that that particular experience didn't happen again from my part, right? From my behavior, from my motives, and from my actions. And so, all of that comes with emotional turmoil and emotional pain. And so, when we talk about emotional turmoil and emotional pain, we can find those concepts in our recovery literature in step 2. When we talk about emotional abuse and emotional harm, we can find those concepts in step 8. And so if we look into emotional volatility and just emotional as a feeling, as an experience, as a concept, if we look into our spiritual text, we would find scriptures that help us to navigate our experience in Psalm 13 and 2 that talks about having sorrow of heart. We see in Ecclesiastes 3 and 4 that there is a time to weep. In John 11:35, we see that Jesus wept. In Psalm 46:1, we see that God is an ever-present help in trouble. In Psalm 34:18, we see that God is close to the brokenhearted and those who are crushed in spirit. In Isaiah, we are admonished to not be dismayed. And so these are all synonyms for emotional volatility, for having deeply moving emotional experiences. There are people in both arenas that would tell you that you are able to master your emotions. I myself don't adhere to that concept. I believe that emotions are natural, they're authentic, they're necessary, and they're messaging. I don't feel like I would have any particular emotion unless it was pointing to change, that it was making me aware of an experience, event, circumstance that was crying out loudly for my attention, almost as a way of saying, pay attention, look here, this needs to be addressed, this is concerning and needs to be resolved. Whatever it is, an event, an experience, a circumstance, it is calling for my attention It is calling for examination. It's calling for analysis. And I pay attention. I'm much more emotional the older I am than when I was younger. And I think it's a byproduct of having more information, of more awareness, of getting older, of becoming more vulnerable, of softening up as I continue to walk out this recovery process. I need to be aware. I need clarity. I need information, whether it's internal or external, whether it is coming through recovery literature or it's coming through the spiritual text. All I am in need of is good, orderly direction. I've never been 68 years old before. This is new with its own challenges in terms of what I consider maturity to be. And I question sometimes, am I mature? Am I spiritually mature? Am I emotionally mature? Am I mentally mature? Am I psychologically mature? And so maturity is such a huge overarching phenomena in life that we tend to think, or I used to think, that maturity was based in age and growing up and not behaving childishly, right? And that's a concept all its own when we talk about childish behavior. There are times we need to think like a child. There are times we need to behave like a child. When I say that, I am thinking how innocently children behave, how authentic children are, how honest they are in their questioning, in their responses. And not that children don't lie, right? You know, they don't need to be taught to lie. That's in us. Once we become fearful of punishment, we're at any age, our first response is not to own up to it, to try to avoid punishment for that particular event, circumstance, or experience. But there are times that we need to be trusting as children are. Not too trusting, but appropriately trusting. And when I say that, I think of recovery where addiction has created in us the mistrust and distrust of others, mostly because I couldn't be trusted myself. And so, of course, my vision is towards you as it is towards me. So that's a work in progress. But anyway, I'm feeling better today. And so, hopefully this is helpful to you as it has been helpful to me. And it is 2026, and it is recovery vigilantly, diligently, and intentionally every day. I cannot progress if I have to regress for the information. By that, I mean yesterday's recovery is not sufficient for today. Yesterday's spiritual training is not going to be sufficient for today. The Bible says that the day has the troubles of its own. So I am going to have to employ some steps and spiritual information, spiritual texts today as the day unfolds. Some of it from yesterday may be useful today. If it is, great. I'll remember it and grab it. If not, I will seek and search for information that will help me to navigate the challenges of today. So until I speak to you again, God bless you and have a great and prosperous recovering day.